The weeks-long saga involving the world's #1 male tennis star Novak Djokovic continues in Australia. The Serbian player has had his visa cancelled for a second time, just 3 days before the Australian Open begins. It leaves Djokovic facing more court hearings and potential deportation. Matthew in the Cube has more.
Rue, as you say, the affair that's been labelled a circus has taken another twist. For the second time in as many weeks, Novak Djokovic faces the possibility of being deported before his first serve at the Australian Open. On Friday, the country's immigration minister Alex Hawke made the decision to cancel his visa for a second time, saying in a statement that he chose to do so on health and good order grounds, and on the basis that it was in the public interest to do so. He added that Australia's government had considered the evidence, but remained firmly committed to protecting the country's borders during the COVID-19 pandemic. Djokovic's legal team are expected to appeal this on Sunday, the second time they will have to go before the courts after the Serbian player was initially detained upon entry at Melbourne Airport. Djokovic is unvaccinated and he acquired a visa to enter Australia with a medical exemption after saying that he had tested positive for COVID-19 last month. Since then, he has admitted that he knowingly broke isolation rules to hold an interview with the French newspaper L'Equipe. And in an Instagram post, he also acknowledged an error in his travel documents, which failed to say that he had visited Spain in the 2 weeks before entering Australia. It was after this that his visa has been re-cancelled, and while the Australian government has been criticised for this late decision, they have remained firm, as has Prime Minister Scott Morrison, who previously tweeted that rules are rules and no one is above them. The decision has also been welcomed by many people in Melbourne, a city that has been locked down for more than 260 days during the pandemic. So what happens now? Well, Novak Djokovic and his team are facing 2 legal orders, one to prevent his immediate deportation and the second to overturn the cancellation of his visa. His lawyers are optimistic that this will happen in time for him to play as scheduled on Monday. But in the meantime, Djokovic is likely to have to return to a Melbourne immigration detention hotel where he previously spent 4 nights. And Rue, on top of this, if Djokovic is deported, then he faces the possibility of being banned from playing in or even visiting Australia for another 3 years.
Thank you, Matthew. Well, let's discuss this further and speak to Joe Ankier, a sports broadcaster in Miami. Hi, Joe. So in any other circumstances, we'd be talking about Djokovic being drawn in the same half as Nadal, but we're still on this visa issue. That's not a good look for Tennis Australia or the government.
No, absolutely not. I think one of the biggest problems is the back and forth of this situation. Earlier in the week on Monday, it was announced that Djokovic would be allowed to enter the country, that his visa had been allowed after the initial holding back by Australian immigration. Now, Tennis Australia has been on the side of trying to help Djokovic to get past this visa issue with the Australian immigration. Tennis Australia has come out and said that they did go through a 2-stage process working with the Victorian Health Department to try to get the visa put through. This all based on the medical exemption that Djokovic is presenting with him having tested positive for COVID-19 back on December 16th. That positive test comes with its own controversies, however, because Djokovic was seen out in public on the days that followed that positive test. So there's been a lot of mixed matching, a lot of back and forthing, and obviously to wake up today to the news that Australian immigration officials have once again cancelled Djokovic's visa. There will be a meeting in a few hours' time going on with border officials, an interview with Djokovic, and then a federal court hearing on Sunday to determine whether or not Djokovic can play in his opening game on Monday. So definitely not a good look for Tennis Australia. They seem to be working in a different way to the government, who obviously have put forward some very, very strict rules regarding their COVID-19 vaccination policy.
So how has the wider tennis community that are preparing to play in Melbourne reacted to this at this stage?
The big word that's been thrown around is circus. People are calling this a media circus. Rafael Nadal has called this a media circus. I think many of the players want to just focus on their game. This is a major Grand Slam. They've been through a pandemic. They want to make the most of this. Andy Murray came out and said, this isn't the line of questioning I want to be answering at a press conference. Rafael Nadal said that this is unfortunate. We'd like the situation to be resolved one way or the other. Of course, Nadal joked that in some ways he'd rather Djokovic wasn't there at all, because the two of them are both aiming to break the record of being the first person to win the 21st Grand Slam. Nadal, of course, was joking. Even the top tennis players at the top of their game do want the best in the sport surrounding them and to create entertainment for the fans. But there has been a mixed bag of opinions. Stefan Tsitsipas, he came out and said that he felt that Djokovic wasn't playing fair. He wasn't playing by the rules. Whereas other tennis players have come out and shown some signs of empathy. The general consensus, though, is that the players, they don't want to be questioned about this. They want the situation to be resolved, and they want to get on with talking about and playing their own game of tennis.